Hello and welcome to Reasoned Live. Thank you very much for your company. I hope you're having a wonderful evening. It's quite sunny up here in the northeast of England, so hopefully you've been able to enjoy that in some way, shape or form. But then again, I assume actually you can get this stream pretty easily on your mobile phone out and about, so no excuses, because who would want to miss this esteemed panel with Chloe Dobbs and Alex Armstrong? Hello to both of them.
Especially when they've been missing us for 2 weeks.
Well, yes, and especially when they're envious of your tan. They'd have to sit outside for about a year, I think.
I would never come out that colour, even if I sat outside for 2 weeks. I'd just be red. Pure red.
Yeah,
I thought
it's lucky I'm not completely British.
I thought we had my GB News colleague Nana Raquia on the show at one point.
I can get a lot darker than this if I properly tan. Trust me. Oh yeah.
Have you got some?
When I lay there and fry myself.
We did pick Cuban. Chloe for your
my grandma's actually an illegal migrant. She illegally snuck into Miami from Cuba, and so did all of her siblings. So I'm part of the family of migrants, guys.
Send her back.
You're going to be shipping me back to Cuba.
Oh, that's so funny.
Right, we'll get straight into it then. I do apologise for Alex looking like he's doing a sort of slow motion or / having a stroke. It's just because he's a bit laggy today. It's been a long week already. It's Wednesday, and he is there. You can hear him. It's just the visuals that struggle a little bit, but that's always the case with him.
Yeah, sorry everybody.
It's just because Alex is AI generated. That's why
I'm doing a GB News and generating myself through AI so I can stay at home and have a pint on Wednesday evenings instead. Sorry, everybody. Hopefully we'll figure this out for next week.
Yeah, I do find that a bit creepy, actually, the AI generation of Tatiana's voice, but I probably shouldn't say that.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, they're doing it during radio breaks for sports news, which is a good idea. But yes, hey, what a world we live in. I'm just hoping that AI is going to make us all rich. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Right, Indeed. Hello to everybody. Lots of nice messages. One of them, though, says, Chloe, bring your audio down. Turn the gain down on. He says you're like a screaming banshee.
Okay, is this better?
Oh, that's far too quiet. I can barely hear you.
Oh. There? Is that better?
I still think that's a bit quiet, to be honest.
I mean, now I'm basically back where I started.
Oh, no, I do think that's better than what it was.
Okay, we'll stay here.
Is that YouTuber? Let us know if that's fixed your eardrums not perforating. But
AD says...
I know I saw. I was just about to read that out.
Go on, go for it, Darren.
Says, Albie wishes Alex was artificial intelligence. What, so we could
turn you off? We got a lot of people in the chat telling us about the fact they voted Reform, and I just want to give the results of a poll we put. We've got 14,000 votes from the Reason subscribers on YouTube on a poll we put up saying, do you think we should have PR at the next general election? And 94% of you said yes.
There we go. The people have spoken.
I agree with that, actually, because I saw Reform put on a graph that shows the disparity between votes. God, I really do tweet far too much. I can't now find the graph. Right, there it is. I just thought this was quite interesting, actually, because you see in colour-coded glory the way in which Reform, obviously 4 million votes, massively increasing its vote share, because, you know, obviously it didn't stand in 2019, but still the point remains. The Lib Lab con, an emphasis on the con, they all lost millions of votes. The Lib Dems really just about, Labour did. I think actually Labour lost almost 2 million votes. It certainly did from 2017 to 2020. What year is it? 2024 anyway. So, I think we do need proportional representation, because no wonder there's voter apathy. No wonder there's disillusionment at the ballot box, because people aren't getting what they voted for. 7.5 million people on that chart there at the very far end. The Conservatives aren't that far away from it. That's half of their vote share from the 14 million they secured in 2019. And yet, Reform aren't receiving those dividends at the ballot box. I think I just can't see it being democratic at all.
Yeah. You know what's really interesting as well is that you see all these Tories online, and funny that AD made that comment about Albie, because Albie's been on a bit of attack dog against me the last few weeks. And Albie.
Who?
And Albie's... Who is that person? Albie is a wet left Tory loser who's basically a Liberal Democrat, as we all know. If you've seen him online and his 7 followers, you'll notice that he's clinging on to his old One Nation Toryism. And I was making the point that he was there with the photo with Tom Tugendhat, who is now, interestingly, potentially looking like the next Tory party leader. And, the point I was making with Dan Wootton on his Twitter was that they're just celebrating their own downfall. If they put Tom Tugendhat in as their party leader, it shows that all the right wingers have left the party, the grassroots party. I'm one of those people who's left the Conservative Party who won't be able to vote. And that now the wet left really are solidly just the only people left in the coffee shop.
Yeah,
bonkers stuff.
It would be music to Nigel Farage's ears, by the way, if Tom Tugendhat, this sort of wet centrist, did win the leadership of the Conservative Party, because, Reform would then be... I spoke earlier about reaping the dividends. There would be one hell of a dividend from that move. I can't... He's a nice man, perfectly nice man, but I don't think he's going to win back the 2019 coalition. And by the way, Alex, you do seem to be moving a lot more now, so it's nice to see some life, and the stroke has ended.
Let's not jinx it just yet. All right.
Yeah, please don't have a stroke. I'd feel horrible then.
Yeah, I think it would be the final nail in the coffin if they pick a One Nation Tory like Tom Tugendhat. I mean, what are they thinking? They must be listening to the advice of George Osborne, who for some reason has come out and said, "Well, the Tories need to fight from the centre to win at the next election." Like, what, as if they were too right-wing at this election? Are you out of your mind? I mean, they were about as left-wing as it gets. I mean, sure, they say some things like stop the boats, but they weren't actually stopping them. Highest tax burden since the Second World War, and you're saying that they needed to be more centrist and more left-wing. I mean, I don't know why they're listening to George Osborne on this. I mean, it's just bonkers.
They're totally delusional, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be someone like Kemi or Suella who's actually on the right of the party if people like us who have gone over to Reform are going to consider voting for them again.
I actually don't want them to do that, because that might help them. And right now, I mean,
Yeah.
sort of
I
death
actually
and destruction.
I agree.
Going back to this graph,
What have I got here? I'll chase them down
I
the
think
street.
if Suella gets into the... What is that? What is going on, Darren?
It's a microphone holder.
If Suella ever became... She's not going to become party leader now.
Oh, no.
She's
not
upset the Tory LGBTers. She's upset the gays, which just goes to show how far that party has fallen.
I do that all the time. Are you telling me I'm not going to be Conservative Party leader?
Well, highly unlikely, Darren. But if she ever did become Conservative Party leader, I think that would be difficult for Nigel, because they'd be far too similar on so many things. But the Tories are now showing complete unwillingness. They're just calling us all racists voting for Reform, as I've been tweeted at quite a lot lately for voting for Reform, and that's the only thing they have, is to slander us now. And I'm looking forward to watching them completely implode over the next 4 years, up until the next general election, where they'll lose another one, and we will hopefully be the opposition.
Yeah. Right.
Fingers crossed that's what happens. That Lib Dem vote going down is actually quite interesting, because we were all thinking, wow, isn't it incredible the Lib Dems got 61 seats? I thought that I hadn't looked at the numbers, but I had presumed that they'd got more votes than the last general election, but clearly not.
They literally just benefited from the collapse of the Conservatives. That's all that happened. It's pure. Actually, to be honest with you, that's the same with the Labour Party, right? There was no. So this was, as many people have said, a loveless landslide. I mean, if Reform had a proportional representation chance, they would have got like 96 seats. You know, that's how extraordinary it is, really. Okie dokie. Right. Let's move on to Donald J. Trump, who we at Reasoned wish all the very best, and we hope his ear grows back strong and that he can hear like an owl. Which, if you haven't seen the TikTok video, that's a very funny TikTok video, and that's not, I am being silly, but it is a very good video. Right. It's on my profile, but Chloe wanted to talk about this video, which is unseen footage showing the Secret Service and state police scrambling as there was no apparent contingency plan to get the reactionary squad through the fence. Total failure. So let's have a look. Oh my God. So incompetent. So incompetent. The worst part is that car trying to ram the fence in order for them all to get through. The contingency plans that you have to make in an eventuality such as that have to be thorough, right? Because he's the former president. He's someone who many on the hard radical left would love nothing more than to murder, as of course was attempted on Saturday night. And the Secret Service failed completely. They took their eyes off of the ball. I mean, there are loads of conspiracy theories running about saying, why did this happen? Could it really just be negligence, incompetence? I would like to think it is more cock-up than conspiracy. Cock-up on a major level. He was not even inches. He must have been centimeters away from death. And Chloe, you have been documenting the reaction to all of this. You have had millions of views on Reasoned for everything you've been posting. And well done, by the way. But I wonder what you thought of that footage, because it does just seem, with every trickle of information we get, to seem far, far worse than we could ever have imagined.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have to say I'm on the fence as to whether it is sheer incompetency or if it's an inside job. We're seeing lots of evidence on this on different sides. This video is suggesting that it is just a major screw up and incompetency. And I am just baffled as to how disorganized they were. So they didn't have a plan how to get through these fences if something happened. Now, they would have known that if a shooter, obviously that is one of the biggest threats that they would have thought about in their planning, where they would probably position themselves on a roof, hidden on that slant, is a very most expected place for them to be. So they should have thought of that. They would have gone in before, they would have surveyed the area and had plans in place for everything that could go wrong. But even if, right, this happened and they saw the shooter and they genuinely were responding, as opposed to some of the other reports we have that people were telling the police and they weren't bothering and they were just ignoring, right? If they were trying to respond but they couldn't get to him, Trump should have been taken off stage immediately the moment they saw a shooter was there. If they couldn't get to the shooter, they had to remove Trump. The fact that they left Trump on stage is extremely concerning. And whether that was on purpose or whether that was a mess up, I don't know, but something is seriously wrong here. We also saw feminism basically die overnight as they saw the way that female Secret Service employees reacted. Not bothering to shield Trump, hiding away behind not doing their job, or not being tall enough to cover him. So that was quite interesting. We saw the DEI arguments sort of go down the drain overnight.
Yeah, Alex, what did you make of it all?
Yeah, it was really shocking. I was actually, before the whole thing kicked off, I actually started watching the beginning of that event with Trump, and I turned it off stupidly. I mean, I wish I hadn't now, halfway through, because it was pretty late here. And then I started getting the notifications rolling through about Trump's been shot, and I couldn't believe it. When I watched the footage, I genuinely couldn't believe it. I thought he was dead when he went down, because there was multiple shots, and it was just absolutely mind blowing. Sorry, excuse the pun if there is one there. To see that footage, and there's a lot of people responsible for this. It's not just down to one deranged person. Conspiracy or not, all we know is that is more than likely just to be one deranged young man. But there's more than one person responsible here. And immediately my thoughts just went straight to the vitriol that's been coming out of the leftists and the mainstream media that is now dominated by these far left and hard left individuals who have basically been calling for his death for years. There's comedians calling for Donald Trump to be assassinated, actors holding up beheaded Joe Brand.
Kathy Griffin had the head,
Yeah, all this stuff is going to inspire someone. And when you've got the president of the United States, which Joe Biden is, and he's going around saying this man is a fascist, he's a threat to democracy, and that this is what's coming out of his mouth, this was inevitable. And, Tucker Carlson is going to go down as some sort of Nostradamus at this point, because he called it out months and months ago. And the mainstream media, what did they do? They called him a far-right conspiracy theorist. And he said that there's a plot to assassinate Trump is getting thicker. And, the whole temperature in America is high. It's getting worse over here as well. And that, unfortunately, is down to unhinged comments coming out of the mainstream media.
Yeah, we're just being reminded. Michelle clearly hasn't seen my beautiful video that I put out earlier, because she says James O'Brien said the same. I think it was before, wasn't it?
It was. It's an old video of James O'Brien. He's saying that, trying to be funny, saying that someone should shoot Trump. And then he goes, "Oh, not quite literally. I didn't mean it like that." And then he goes on to repeat the same original comment about Trump being shot. These people are wrong. They're sick in the head. And just imagine if this was Joe Biden that was shot. Put the shoe on the other foot for a second. How insane the mainstream media would be about Trump and about his MAGA followers and all this nonsense. You really just can't write it, can you? You really can't. The whole thing is sort of a black comedy.
And
I
there's
don't think you can
one
say
thing
that
that
anymore,
I was
Alex.
one thing that I would say
keep saying it, Darren.
Yesterday was that there are certain people in history who, most of us have agreed, yes, it's a good idea to kill them, like people. Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein, Hitler, etc. Right? And so you can understand when people paint Trump out to be an evil, racist, fascist who wants to, people probably say he wants to murder migrants and murder trans people and all of this stuff people come up with on the internet. Of course, don't be surprised when people come to the conclusion that this is a man that needs to be assassinated, if that's how you're going to paint him to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's so wrong.
Chloe.
This sort of the horrible hyperbole has just gone too far. No one ever on the right. I don't see people on the right saying that President Biden needs to be taken out. Why is it so laissez-faire when it comes to President Trump? It's the Roger Scruton famously said that the difference between the left and the right is that the right think the left are misguided and wrong politically. The left think that the right are evil. That's the discrepancy there. And
it's so funny that there's this really hilarious black comedian, and he said, Donald Trump's got real life-threatening enemies. Joe Biden's biggest threat to his life is a bunch of stairs. It's like this is true. This is literally true. And look back in the history of all the presidents that have been assassinated, apart from JFK, they've all been Republican or right wing.
And John on YouTube says the fence around Trump was apparently more resilient than Biden's fence around the Mexican border, which I think is quite a good one.
That's great.
And,
I might steal that.
Yeah, Lone Warrior says Trump dodged a bullet. Biden can't even manage the stairs. Damn right. But I do like this FBI DEI hire. I wonder how many are going to be going as her for Halloween this year. They'll probably have to, roll around on the floor.
Also, I think if you scroll through Will's story, there's one about a meme about Timu.
Oh.
Wait, this
Oh,
one,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
When you order a pillow on Timu.
For those that don't know, Temu is like a cheap Chinese, like an
Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon, isn't it? Yeah.
And everything you order does not appear as it did online.
Can I just say this on the Trump ear thing as well? This bandage on his ear, because the left have moved on now from Trump being shot, and they've completely just forgotten about it, and now they're completely mocking him for his bandage, which, you know, he's had professionals do. It's not like he's chucked it on there. You've got Mark Hamill, who plays Luke Skywalker,
Oh, he's
laughing
such an
at Trump.
arsehole.
He's such a weird loser. And, you know, there's one fake tweet got put out saying that Trump was on a golf course the morning after he was shot, and then back at the RNC with his bandage on. That's a fake image. It was taken like 4 years ago, and they all seem to be spouting the same nonsense. This is how brain dead they actually are, is that they can't even read the community note on Twitter and be educated by it, and then they're all pushing this nonsense out. You know, only the left could get away with it. This is how they have penetrated our media and our way of life, that they get away with saying so much now. If this was anyone on the right wing, they'd be cancelled on off air in minutes.
Now,
Yeah.
the J.D. Vance was selected as the vice presidential nominee by President Trump. Now, J.D. Vance is famous for writing a 2016 memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, isn't it? And that was turned into a Netflix film. And Glenn Close, no, was it Glenn Close? I want to say it was Glenn Close was in it. But anyway, it's a really good film, which I watched a few years ago, not knowing who had written it. And Vance is a MAGA philosophical thinker like you wouldn't believe. And he exemplifies the background of those from broken homes who have been surrounded by alcohol addiction, drug dependency, and suffered as a consequence. But he managed to go to Yale Law School, dragged himself up, and has ended up as Trump's vice president nominee, which is a pretty incredible story. But the Democrats are all up in arms about him, saying, you know, well, he's a far right, blah, 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 blah. And in this debate, when he was running for the Ohio Senate, he was questioned about his stance on abortion as being extreme. And this was his response when it was pointed out to him that a 10-year-old girl was struggling to receive medical intervention in the form of abortion. And you find out in this clip just why this 10-year-old girl had ended up pregnant. And I tell you what, after watching this clip, I cannot wait to see that hysterical hyena Kamala Harris debate this man. But let's have a watch, have a listen.
As an exception.
Look, I've always believed in reasonable exceptions. This is a misrepresentation of my view, but let's hear it from me, not from Congressman Ryan. I absolutely think the 10-year-old girl, the case that we've, of course, heard a lot about, an incredibly tragic situation. I mean, look, I've got a 9-year-old baby girl at home. I cannot imagine what that's like for the girl, for her family. God forbid something like that would happen. I have said repeatedly on the record that I think that girl should be able to get an abortion if she and her family so choose to do so. But let's talk about that case. Because why was a 10-year-old girl raped in our community, raped in our state in the first place? The thing the media and Congressman Ryan, they talk about this all the time. The thing they never mentioned is that poor girl was raped by an illegal alien, somebody that should have never been in this state in the first place. You voted so many times against border wall funding, so many times for amnesty, Tim. If you had done your job, she would have never been raped in the first place. Do your job on border security. Don't lecture me about opinions I don't actually have.
Now, I thought that was a tour de force, and it just goes to show, you know, we were passing remark earlier about the complete collapse of any form of border security at the southern border in the United States. And this is the consequence, right? This is what happens when those who simply would never be allowed to go to America on any other metric if you judge them on their character, repertoire, whatever else. Come over and do things like that. And this poor little girl, scarred for life, and that's why she was seeking this abortion. It's a hideous story, but I'm surprised that the Democrat was thick enough to even challenge him on the issue, knowing that that was the actual story behind it. But what do you make, Chloe, of J.D. Vance in general?
You know what? I didn't really know anything about the guy until he was announced as the VP. I haven't followed him very closely, but we saw going viral, those comments from him suggesting that, we are an Islamist state in Britain. So that
we'll
was
get on to that.
something.
Don't talk about that yet. We'll get on to that.
But this clip here, I think that he owned that really, really well. He was able, they wanted a sound bite off him. They wanted a simple answer, but he gave the nuanced, proper explanation that actually explains his point of view very well. I think it's interesting how the left think that the solution to 10-year-old girls being raped by illegal migrants is just to give them abortions rather than attacking the cause of the problem. And it just reminds me of, there's a video I reacted to from a Lib Dem candidate speaking with, I can't remember her name, the woman that runs Let Women Speak. And he was saying, when she was challenging him on trans women, i.e. biological men being allowed in women's prisons, he's like, oh, it's all right, we just need to focus on opening up more rape crisis centres. What, so just allow those biological men to go in the prisons and rape who they want, but don't worry because we've got a rape crisis centre for you to go to afterwards. Like, the trauma's been caused, the damage has been done, you can't reverse it. And having an abortion does not get rid of the trauma from rape. In fact, you actually find that sometimes people who are raped who have abortions, it's often the case that although it might, for their mental health, improve them slightly in the short term, in the long term, it actually makes them worse off. The grievance of losing their baby, and it does not resolve the trauma of being raped. So stop it from happening in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, before you comment, I do want to play that clip of J.D. Vance speaking about Britain, about the United Kingdom, and see what he said, and then read you out Angela Rayner's reply. You won't want to miss that one. The brainy box, eh?
One of the big dangers in the... By the way, I have to beat up on the UK, just one additional thing. I was talking with a friend recently, and we were talking about, one of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation, though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. And I was talking about, what is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK, since Labour just took over. But to my Tory friends, I have to say, you guys have got to get a handle on this, but neither here nor there. By the way, I have to beat up on the UK, just one out.
Tories get the shit together. Yes, I should think so too. But Angela Rayner's reply, what she said, he said some fruity things. Angela Rayner defends Labour after Trump's new running mate touts UK as Islamist state. So her actual comment, her full comment was, I'm very proud of the election success that Labour had recently. We won votes across all different communities across the whole of the country, and we're interested in governing on behalf of Britain and also working with our international allies. Bullshit statement to try and pander to be nice to him, given that the Foreign Secretary literally called the future president again of the United States a neo-Nazi sympathizer. But she says, so I look forward to that meeting if that's the result, and it's up to the American people to decide. And she says that we will work with political leaders across the whole spectrum. They'll have opinions on what we do and suggest, and we'll work together constructively. And a Tory blasted the comments and said it was offensive. That's the Tory Andrew Bowie, who is the shadow Veterans Secretary. But Alex, I'm not convinced. Actually, the Tory comment is more robust against the Republican nominee than the Labour Angela Rayner's comment. And that wasn't me, by the way. And I can't get over
it's
that.
Hillary.
Because Clinton, oh yes, that's the Donald Trump clip.
Sorry.
And if you consider, right, the Tories saying that these comments by J.D. Vance are completely, what's the word he used? I've just reminded myself of it. He said offensive. But, oh, that word is just, offensive. But you could consider the polling data that I've referenced before. You know, the Henry Jackson Society found through JL Partners, it's a perfectly reputable polling company, that almost a quarter of 18 to 34-year-olds, British Muslims, are down with the concept of jihad. It's cool with the kids. And that 1 in 3 of them from the same age group want Sharia law slapped onto British soil. And we're talking, right, about apostasy. I cannot say that word right now. Hand chopping, basically, for theft, and stoning or lashing for adultery. Lovely stuff. Perfectly in line with British values. And then during the election campaign, as we covered on this very channel, Angela Rayner sat in this sort of harem. Well, a harem would be full of women, but you get the point. This group of men in her constituency, Ashton-under-Lyne, and she was practically pleading for their votes. She thanked them for helping her escape through in 2019. But this is the twisted new sectarianism that we are experiencing in Britain today, where women are going to be dragged back to being second-class citizens, where the political left are playing footsie with a misogynistic brand of politics, despite saying that they are champions of women. But we also see it, of course, in the trans debate. That's not going to come to loggerheads at all, is it? And never before have we actually seen numbers of young people taken to the streets who resist integrating into our way of life and want to upend our lifestyles to actually dominate everybody else. So, frankly, I think Labour have lost their minds over losing seats over issues like focusing on Gaza and not Glasgow to these independent nut jobs who've ended up in Parliament. They've been cozying up to all kinds of shady characters, and the Labour Party actually refused to confront what is the new fascism. They talk about fascism all the time and call every Tom, Dick and Harry it, but actually these people are the new fascists, and I'm afraid they pander to these people who were brought here under Tony Blair, and the Conservatives obviously didn't exactly shut the door either, but actually were owed to the country to say these things frankly and openly. So I welcome J.D. Vance's intervention. I'm just going to say that plainly, come hell or high water. Alex, so what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's really important to clarify that he's obviously joking about us being an Islamist nation in general, because I know the left are trying to weaponize his words and make them sound extremist. He was obviously joking, and let's just be clear about that. But there is truth underlying what he's saying. And the truth is that we've just had a general election where key political players like Jonathan Ashworth, who's a front-bench shadow cabinet minister, ejected to Islamists. We had Jess Phillips come within the skins of her teeth from it as well, and obviously receive a ton of abuse. We had Keir Starmer lose 16,000 votes again because of Islamism and Gaza candidates. The reality is that this sort of centre left wing coat that the Labour Party are currently shrouding everybody in is going to fall very, very quickly, because that party has been pandering to Islamists and pandering to their calls for Palestine and Gaza for the last 6 to 8 months. Inherently, the party is now infiltrated by them, and where they aren't infiltrated by them, they're being replaced by Islamist candidates. And look, let's just get real. The British population, the white British, the native British population is in decline. Our birth rate is dropping, and we are importing people in the millions. We had 1 million people arrive here this year, not net, because we take away the 400,000 people that left, but 1 million people still came to this country that we know of. And by the way, those figures are massively disputed. We think our population's far higher than that. It's way closer to 80 million than this ridiculous 60 million figure. So we know the replacement is starting. And there might be people who crap on this great replacement theory, but it is true. And places like London are there are parts of London, like where I was born, where there are basically now native white British people are the minority. That is a fact. And that is going to replicate itself over and over again in more and more cities and towns across Britain as our society changes. And the reality that JD Vance has just pointed out is that the people that are in power today have been pandering to these Gaza people. They've not only did they sort of creak the door open, the Tories swung it far open for them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like where it's ever going to end.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Alex, about the population replacement, because the reality is that Muslims tend to have a lot more children than non-Muslims. It's a big part of their culture. They're very family orientated, which is, to be honest, one of the reasons why some people are flocking to Islam is, aside from some of the things that I very much disagree with in Islam, they do get a few things right, which is that they focus more on sort of the family unit and cooperation within the family rather than, which is one of the reasons, as sort of a response to some of the bad things that have come out of feminism, where we say, women being homemakers and looking after children is not something to be impressed by. That's one of the reasons why Islam is growing, which is an important thing to note. But just on the population side, Muslims are having a lot more children than non-Muslims, and us non-Muslims are having fewer and fewer children. You do the maths, eventually we end up in a situation where we are an Islamist country. What JD Vance has said, obviously, is an exaggeration in that we are not an Islamist country right now, but that is where we are headed if things keep continuing as they are. And there's a difference between saying, I'm happy to live in a society where we have lots of different faiths that get along well, to a point where Islam becomes the main faith that is everywhere, and your country then becomes pretty much an Islamist country. You can like the former and not be completely against Muslims without wanting the latter.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of, given that what we've just mentioned, I think it's probably quite. I was going to do this later on, but what we've just mentioned is quite prescient, because there's this video here from Sky News, and it's about a guy called Mohammed. Now, Mohammed is 45 years old. He's hauled his wife and 4 kids over from Pakistan in April 2023 after being lured here to Brighton, to be specific, by a company set up and given work by Brighton and Hove Council. It's called a company. The company rather is called Renaissance Personnels, and this guy, Mohammed, was promised an assistant job alongside about 100 other people. And if you work it out, one, I think it's an indignity that those who struggle to speak English and all these other things are looking after these elderly people who I just find that uncomfortable. I just don't understand why we can't pay those in the care sector a decent wage in this country, so that actually British people can afford to live on their meagre salaries and do it themselves. But it's going to cost the taxpayer about £20,000, well, over £20,000 every single year, just to educate Mohammed's 4 children. And Mohammed, because he'll be on such a poor wage as a care worker, that's if he did have a job as a care worker, he doesn't, by the way, who would contribute absolutely nothing in taxes. So the lifetime cost of handing out this one social care visa is costing us £1 million. Well, could you not have paid a British worker or two a few bob extra to do the job, instead of taking on that cost and his 4 dependents, for God's sake, from Pakistan, a country which a lot of people, frankly, do not share our values in. And I have no qualms about saying that. So instead of paying those decent wages, why are the Conservatives, why are the Labour Party, who have betrayed us on this issue, not saying we won't change a damn thing and actually do well by the British people? Because I think this is an absolute textbook example. And before you contribute, Alex, I just want to play the clip. It's not very long, just so you get a flavour of what it is.
His family came to Brighton from Pakistan last year after he was promised a job as a carer, but their futures here are under threat. The company he came to work for has had its licence to sponsor foreign workers revoked by the Home Office. It means if they stay, Mohammed, his wife and children will be in Britain illegally.
They were having the dream that
Many, like Fajar, are getting desperate. Renaissance has barely given him any shifts since he arrived over a year ago, despite promising him full-time work.
I only worked for a few days, 3-4 days in last June, and after that I have not got any work.
It means he hasn't been able to pay his parents back the £20,000 they were illegally charged for his visa.
Home Office asked us to leave the country, then we have to leave the country, and everything we pay will be demolished.
Time's running out.
It will be a very too much big problem.
You'll be
for
here
us legally.
Renaissance has been accused of recruiting over 100 foreign staff without enough work to offer them. Mohammed says the company has already lost contact with many people it sponsored to come here.
they have disappeared. In the UK,
And what are they doing?
they may be doing cash jobs, or maybe they are involved some other activities.
This worker, who we're calling Anabia, says she and her husband intend to stay no matter what, and haven't told her husband's employer that his visa as her dependent may no longer be valid. You'd rather stay here illegally than go back to Pakistan? The carers that are getting work are looking after some of the most vulnerable people in society. Are vulnerable people being put at risk, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. They are not trained. We don't have those equipments where you can check that manual handling training, etc. We don't have any fire safety training.
So, Alex, if I went to whatever country, if I went to, let's say, Pakistan, and I rocked up for a fake job application, which may well be the case here, who knows, and have you any doubt whatsoever that I wouldn't be deported?
No, I have zero doubts about that, Darren. It would be the same in any sensible country around the world, including many Western countries, including if you went to America as a British citizen and didn't have a job, you would be deported back to the United Kingdom quicker than you can blink. So let's not pretend that this is an issue of race or anything else. This is an issue with our immigration system, end of, and the people that have been running our immigration system for the last, 30 years, quite frankly, because at this point in time, we understand that the reason why they are happy to flood our country full of more people is because they've been trying to keep GDP afloat, which up until recently was debunked as a complete fallacy because it brings GDP per capita down. Now, of course, I feel sorry for people watching them being brought over here thinking they're going to get a job because they're trying to do this legally. At least those people aren't coming over on a boat and pretending to be refugees. They're coming over here and applying for jobs and have been invited here by British businesses. But it does immediately show the weakness in our system, its desire to live off of cheap foreign labor, and it exposes the problem we have, which is that we're our most vulnerable in society. The jobs that would look after them are being given to low paid, uneducated, and poorly trained individuals. That's the crux of the issue here. Whether they're from Pakistan, India, France, or anywhere else, I don't care. If you come to the country, you don't have a job, unfortunately, you've got to go home. It's tough.
Yeah, well, I mean, for politicians, immigration is a quick fix to a country where you've got a lack of training and a lack of productivity. So they all go for it. I mean, we've heard time and time again that we need immigrants because they grow the economy. But, Darren, you've been showing us some stats in recent months of showing that that's not the case. And it's because they bring over all their family members for them and then only earning like minimum wage. So they haven't got enough to support them. If you ask me, if you come here, come by yourself, and you're not allowed to bring dependents over until you're A, earning enough money to support them, and B, paying enough taxes to pay for their schooling and healthcare and whatnot.
I completely agree. I couldn't agree more. But we'll go back to immigration and Labour in a moment, because Labour are going through it on immigration already. We're almost 2 weeks in, and already shit is hitting the fan. And the boat migrants are still coming over. But
Darren, I don't know if you saw the video I just sent. Speaking of migrants in Bristol.
Oh, migrants.
If you check your
in Bristol.
Twitter DMs. I just sent you a video.
Yeah. So
this is quite a shocking video to quickly show. So this is a new. Then it will turn the volume off. This is a new dentist that opened in Bristol, and this is the queue for people waiting to
my
get an
God.
appointment. And, I think the point that Dave Atherton was making on this is you can tell that they are mostly migrants.
Gosh. Well, that's the thing. When they bring over all of their dependents, you've got to house them, you've got to school them, you've got to heal them, you've got to check their teeth, you've got to do it. Well, the council's got to take their bins away. All of these things have consequences. That queue is absolutely extraordinary.
It's
not
absolutely.
over
It's
yet.
like
It goes
a
around
queue.
the corner.
I've seen smaller queues.
It's like a queue for a new iPhone. Yeah, it's shocking stuff, isn't it? It really is. And Darren, you nailed something really important there, and it's the fact that we're bringing in millions of people into this country, but where is the new infrastructure being built? Where are the new hospitals? Where are the new schools? This is one dentist opening up, and it shows the problem. It shows what the problem is. There is too many people in this country for the services and infrastructure that we have. We cannot keep doing this. It's destroying our country. This is what I'd expect in a third world country. People queuing up like this for a dentist is ridiculous.
Well, in some third world countries, they have quicker access to healthcare than this.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, this is absolutely shocking. I mean,
are.
it's especially in dentistry, it is really, really hard to get an NHS place nowadays. And I'm sure there are probably some viewers watching this who are also trying to get an NHS place at the dentist and can't get one.
Yeah.
And they're looking at this thinking, why are these people being put before me as a Brit who is born here and pays my taxes?
Yeah, Mark says, why am I paying my taxes? So, good point.
Alan's made a good point here as well, and he said, he's right. So they were invited over here with the prize of a better life and schooling for their children. You can't blame them. And of course, if you were invited, we go abroad as well. Let's be honest. We go to Spain, we go to Australia with the hope for a better life than we have here, and we go over legally. Let's be fair. We're invited and we go over legally. The issue is that our system is inviting them over here without these promises. Without the promise is come over to Britain, have a great life. We need you. But the reality is we're full. We are absolutely full. Our services are at max capacity. And this globalist agenda to constantly increase our population is crushing us. It's destroying what made Britain so good, what made Britain so attractive. And guarantee you by 2050, most of these people will be going back to wherever they came from because it will be just as bad here by then.
And I don't want people coming here that don't like gays, that don't like women, that want to send them back to the dark ages. I just don't want them coming here. And I don't care if I get accused of racism for saying that. I just do not want them in my country. I want my country back. And that's what we keep saying in election after election. And they ignore us at every single opportunity. And I just don't know why they can't see why that's not, or frankly, they just don't care about the democratic detriment that has at the ballot box. So
yeah, I mean that video shows clear as day why it just shows so clearly that Britain is full, and just shows why you're not a racist to say sorry, we cannot take any more at the moment. What might be able to at some point in the future, but definitely not now, because this is the state of Britain. Look at the length of that queue. Nobody should have to wait in a queue that long to get a dentist appointment. It's absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah. Cheshire Cat on YouTube says, why is a cat at the dentist? I'm just kidding. I can't get an NHS dentist. I'm on a low wage and had to save up in paying £189 private just to have one tooth extraction. Well, I'm sorry.
And that's what's happening. Brits are at the back of the queue. Other people who have come here illegally, or may have come here legally but don't pay any taxes or on minimum wage and the state is propping them up, those are the people getting NHS appointments, whilst Brits are having to fork out 189 quid for a tooth extraction. And also, you've got cases in Britain now of people pulling out their own teeth quite often because they can't get a bloody appointment. People in a lot of pain because even if they're willing to cough up a bit of money, they can't actually get an appointment. I mean, the state that it has gotten to is just not sustainable any longer. And what really annoys me is that time and time again, when I say, look at this, Britain is full, we need to press pause for a bit, people say, oh, well, it's just because the evil Tories didn't bother to build any hospitals and improve our healthcare system and build enough homes and this and that. And it's like, fair comment, the Tories have failed. But also, even if they were, building hospitals at a fairly fast rate, even if they were building homes at their target rate, it wouldn't be anywhere near enough to cope. So the idea that we can keep on having the number of migrants we've got coming in, flooding into Britain with the new Labour Party who say they're going to build homes quickly and schools quickly and all this, it's not going to work. I'm sorry.
And I'm going to make
can I
some
just
comments.
add on?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Patricia says, ended up going to Turkey to get my teeth done. I was on a waiting list in the UK for 3 years. I couldn't wait any longer. I hope they did a good job, Patricia.
It's unacceptable.
And Clive says, top management in Tesco says the amount of staples we sell there is probably 10 million more people in the country than the official number. And that's on estimates that obviously the market forces are predicting. And I think that's pretty terrifying, right? Those figures, Alex, are pretty scary.
Yeah. There's a report on this that came out in 2007 from a very reputable and left-wing journalist. I can't remember his name now, Martin something. And he said he'd done a big review into the mobile phone networks, to the consumption, and of course sewers are another really interesting way to find out how big your population is from the raw data, so to speak. And we looked at that point. This was 2007. He said that he estimated the country to be at 80 million then. Imagine what it is now. And the reality is that a lot of our problems in this country come from left-leaning individuals, people, and I'm going to say this very bluntly, people in Scotland, people in Liverpool, where there are less immigrants. You know what? I'd say when the immigrants come here, let's start sending them up to Scotland, because they keep telling us Britain's open, that we welcome more immigrants. Let's shove them up there, because I can tell you what, within 2 years, the Scottish people will be going absolutely bonkers. I lived in Scotland and they will not welcome it. I've been to Liverpool, and most of them won't welcome it. The problem is that the concentration of immigration is centred around some very key areas of Britain. And so there are people who don't think this is an issue. But I'm telling you, from someone who was born in northwest London, where in a borough now there are no white Brits left, where I go to my hometown and I feel like I'm a foreigner, that it is an issue and it's going to get worse. And it's no problem. I don't mind people coming over to this country if they're going to contribute to our society, if they're going to buy into our values and be British, and their children be British. But that is not what's happening, as Nigel Farage has pointed out. And as you pointed out, Darren and Chloe, the radicalisation of those young people is getting very, very serious.
Yeah, and I mean, Glasgow in Scotland is already facing pretty significant issues because of it, to be honest, like grooming scandals and all these other things. So anyway, right, we'll have to move on from that. Otherwise, I'm going to keep you here until doomsday. So, which is probably nigh, given all the issues that we've been speaking about. But Chloe, you again picked out this one. I'll start here first. So Elon Musk is to quit California. His companies like X, Twitter, and SpaceX, which receives quite a lot in the way of taxpayer support in the United States of America, but also has a lot of private enterprise through setting it up as a private company. And it does a lot better than NASA in a lot of ways, actually, having more flexibility and maneuverability through the virtue of being a private enterprise instead of being state-owned. And, well, politicians aren't involved. That might help. And he's going to set up a new headquarters in Texas, as he's criticised a bill in California which ensures schools cannot disclose people's gender identities to their parents. Now, that to me is a breach of parental rights. But Chloe, I wonder if we need to be a bit more, I know he's a billionaire, so this is quite hard to quantify, but do we all need to be a bit more Elon Musk and start sort of fighting back with our wallets?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, often in politics, especially in America, decisions are made where the money goes. So Elon Musk pulling his businesses out of California, hence depriving them of that business and that tax revenue in the state of California, I think is a very, very bold thing to do. And, I'm very proud of him for doing that. Some people will say, oh, there are incentives other than this. Elon Musk has said that this is the final straw of a bunch of different laws that California has brought in, including ridiculous tax laws. So yes, there may be a financial incentive for him to move. But at the end of the day, Elon Musk, I think that, especially with him buying X and now this, he does really think with his heart, not just what's good for his business. And this is quite close to home for him because a lot of people don't know, because this hasn't been super public, but Elon Musk had a son called Xavier, and Xavier, as soon as he turned 18, changed his name to Vivian, now identifies as a girl, has changed his surname as well, doesn't want it Musk, and has said, I don't want anything to do with my father, he's transphobic, and he's now estranged from his child, very, very sadly. And Elon Musk says that what happened to his child is as a consequence of this Marxism that runs rife in the schooling system in California. So hence I can understand why he's really, really angry about this. And this isn't the only woke law about gender that has come out in California. Last year, I don't think it got enough press, to be honest. California, they passed a law saying that courts will have to take into consideration whether parents affirm their child's gender or not when deciding who gets custody of a child. So essentially, you could lose custody of your child, and that includes losing custody of your child to the state. A child can be handed over to the government if you do not affirm their gender. And that is absolutely terrifying. What on earth is going on in California? And it's important to note that the governor of California is Gavin Newsom, who a lot of people are talking about as a potential candidate to replace Joe Biden if they manage to get rid of him. He's not going to be great for America either. So we've got to pray that whatever the Democrat candidate is, that we still end up with Trump at the end of the day.
And on that point, Alex, Musk has also donated $45 million. Million? Do I mean million? $45
million a month.
$45 million a month to a new pro-Trump super PAC, which is a political action committee, which organises funding for candidates. And that's quite a significant sum of money. He's putting his money where his mouth is once again.
Yeah, well, he's a man of his action, isn't he? He doesn't mince his words. He says them as it is, and it's one of the reasons why he's so popular and such a great role model to so many people. You get a lot of these sort of globalist leaders like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, who very much peddle this secret agenda through their actions too, but they keep their mouth shut as they do it. Elon Musk says what he thinks. And I think he's a hero. He's probably one of the last remaining heroes in the corporate world. And I'm so glad he's the richest man in the world, because it makes him very hard to take down, which is great. But, the good thing about America, and this is where America's got things very right, is that you can just move states if you don't like what they're doing there. And we've seen millions of people leave California and other failing states to go to Republican ones, like Texas and Florida have been very, very popular lately. We don't have that system in our country. We only have one tax band, one government, and therefore it makes it very hard to move your money and put your money where your mouth is without leaving the country. Well, Scotland is a good example of that, but again, it's unfortunately got a higher tax rate and more lefties up there than we do down here. So you are really spoiled for choice in this country as to where you can go to escape socialism. And I think that's why we're seeing so many wealthy people in our country leave to go to places like Dubai, even though I don't necessarily agree with the values of those people in Dubai, but they take their money there. And of course, Australia as well. We're seeing the rich and right leave this country at a rapid pace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Elon Musk, he also donated $100,000 to the family of the father who was sadly killed at the Trump rally,
amazing.
Which was very, very kind of him. Yeah, there are a lot of people who have been chipping into a fundraiser and raising money for the family, which is really nice to see. And it's nice to see, how the right versus how the left have responded to what happened at the Trump rally. The right, you've just seen, everyone sending their prayers, being incredibly kind and considerate to the families of the people that sadly passed away. And I've been really impressed with the way that the right have responded to this. But the left, on the other hand, you've got all these lefty TikTokers everywhere saying, "Oh my God, what a shame the shooter missed." And I was absolutely disgusted yesterday when I saw this streamer celebrating
you
the
posted
death
a
of
video
the
of it.
firefighter. I mean, how can you do that? I mean, I just struggle to think how any sane human being can say such a thing.
Yeah. Right, let's move on from Elon Musk. I'm going to actually to give you a brief outline of this. So, a freed sex offender who attacked 8 women in 4 days was given a life sentence after raping a jogger at knife point, which must have been a truly terrifying, horrific ordeal. And it was during a drug-fueled spree of attacks. Now, his name was Louis Collins, and he hit the woman over the head and forced her to the ground in Marble Hill Park in Twickenham, southwest London, during the hour-long
Oh my God,
attack.
that's like by me.
Yeah, very near you. Yeah.
It's pretty safe around here, you normally think.
Well, I'm telling you, this is spreading like wildfire. And he brandished a knife and a broken bottle, and he said, "Don't scream, nobody's going to help you," before tearing off her clothes and assaulting her. Now, the reason I bring this story up is because he was brought into Lambeth Hospital and he actually was released from this hospital, allowed to walk free from this secure hospital, despite the fact that he was off his rocker and despite the fact he's addicted to more drugs than Pablo Escobar. And he had been released before in the past. He was let out not only of that hospital without supervision, but also he groped a woman at Clapham Common station, that's in London, and as she was travelling up the escalator. Now, why wasn't he, monitored and put on a list after that? But the reason I bring this up is because this sort of thing is only going to get worse. Because in the King's speech, which was today, the Labour Party set out its plan for government. Now, the Mental Health Act is in that, and reform of the Mental Health Act is in that, improving mental health. And it says here that mental health legislation is woefully out of date. It says the operation of the Mental Health Act discriminates against black people who are much more likely to be detained than others. Labour will modernise legislation to give patients greater choice, autonomy, enhanced rights and support, and ensure everyone is treated with dignity and respect throughout treatment. Now, given that this event took place before this poor woman, this poor jogger, who should be free to run about a bloody park without being raped with threat of being stabbed or whatever else with a broken bottle. And this fella now, well, if you turn around and say, we're sectioning him under the Mental Health Act because he's totally off his nuts and he's going around groping people and all these other things, well, why on earth would you say, he's a black man? Well, just let him out. We can't. It's the same arguments that we heard for stop and search. It's the same arguments that we heard over the grooming gang scandal. You can't do certain things to people of colour because that will be seen as racist. And this is what we get with Labour. This identity politics comes first over common sense lawmaking. And actually, the repercussions will be that women are put at risk. The repercussions will be that there is greater discrimination against white people, and I think it's a damn bloody disgrace. Actions have consequences, and these actions are going to be really serious. But do you see the link I'm making here, Chloe?
Yeah, I mean, the consequences are absolutely grave. I'm sure that a woman who sadly suffered rape in the park when she was just trying to go for a jog would be absolutely horrified to hear the stuff that's coming out of Labour. I mean, we saw, what was it, last year, the Met Police ripping up their gangs matrix because they said that black people were overrepresented on their register of gangs. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever seen a white gang in London. Okay, you can drill into why is it the case that black people have a greater tendency to become a part of gang and part of gangs and solve that problem, but don't just rip up the crime stats and say that, oh, we're all racist because there are black people overrepresented in crime stats and in prisons. I mean, this is absolutely bonkers. And, you know, Labour saying they're going to let out 40,000 people out of prison. I didn't realise just how huge that was until I think someone told me the actual prison population is only 87,000. So I'm like, wait, hang on, you're letting out nearly half of them? That's genuinely insane. And I can't remember who was telling me they were going through which types of criminals will be allowed out. And I was hoping it would just be people who have, you know, not paid their taxes or, you know, stolen some stuff from the local sweet shop or something, people who haven't done huge crimes. But they were like, nope, people who have been rapists and involved in domestic violence, they can potentially all be let out as well. I mean, it's scary what's on the horizon.
Yeah. Alex, what does this tell us about Labour?
Yeah, well, we know Labour, we said this before the election, we know Labour are soft on crime, first of all, we know that. One of their first acts to be, as Chloe just completely nailed it there, to release all those prisoners should tell you something. Those people are going to, people like this man, and let's not forget, but they just a couple of weeks ago, they said there'll be no violent prisoners released. We now know that there will be violent prisoners released as part of this mass jailbreak that Labour is allowing. And of course, we can blame the Tories for this as well. They absolutely and completely fail to get control of our justice system. It's part of the uniparty system. The Tories ignore it, then Labour go and let them all free. But you know, this goes back to the thing I was saying before the election. There is no money left in this country. The coffers are empty. We've spent it all, mostly on mad COVID policies that we obliterated the finances of our country. All those years of austerity were for nothing. And therefore, Labour are going to pursue a social policy agenda for the next 4 years. And that's exactly what they're going to be doing. They're going to be slyly raising taxes to pay for their ridiculous things like GB energy and all this nonsense. Yeah. And instead, they're going to be putting identity politics first. They'll be putting British citizens second and be building their future base of voters who will be the Islamists that have just defeated some of their own candidates. This is very obvious what Labour's long-term plan is here. It's to inspire a whole new generation of future voters, and I'm sure the Tories are thinking about doing it too, frankly, given where their policy seems to lie these days. But, you know, sad, shocking, and despairing for our country for the next 4 years. This is the tip of the iceberg.
I'm just going to rattle through some stories because I'm conscious of the fact that people have lives. But the Labour, not that it's not a good use of time to speak to our beautiful viewers, of course, but Labour have shelved plans for foreign workers crackdown, despite the population surge, which is the population has never been, it's never grown faster than it is now in the last 75 years, which is when records began. So this is a record-breaking eventuality that's taken place today. And the party is set to delay the introduction of 2 major legal changes to require bosses to limit foreign labour until a second session of Parliament next year. They're just going to kick this down the road. They have no desire to do this. We absolutely know that. Natural growth in the domestic population was just 400, the lowest for 46 years, because of a fall in the number of births and a rise in deaths as a result of an ageing population in England and Wales. They don't give a shit. They're happy to keep things as they are. Then the small boats leader, chief, quit. That quite suddenly he was put in post by Suella Braverman to stop the boats, and Guido folks are asking whether or not he potentially had some misgivings, shall we say, about Labour's so-called plan. And Suella Braverman actually appointed him to set up the Illegal Migration Operations Command last April, and he was meant to stay on under Labour with this Border Force Command, or whatever they're calling theirs, which is just, the same iteration with different packaging. And James cleverly pointed out that civil servants know the command is doomed to fail. And one says that many thought Stewart would be the new small boats commander, but, he's gone off and the Home Office are going to have to interview for a new one, which won't even take place until September. So it's quite clear that Labour on immigration, we absolutely aren't going to get control of our borders anytime soon. And this has consequences, because the Labour MP, Kim Ledbetter, who is the sister of the late murdered Member of Parliament, murdered in 2016, Joe Cox, and she was speaking about the worrying threats and intimidation rampant in our own country that were being evidenced throughout the general election. And she listed a list of MPs, Jess Phillips being one of them, Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood?
Shabana Mahmood, yeah.
And she listed a few others, and they all have one thing in common, which is that their constituencies all have high Muslim populations. But she refused to identify that. And I said, until you actually identify the threat, how can you ever possibly hope to combat it? How can you actually address it without countenance and ever mentioning it in name, because you're so scared of being accused of racism and all these other watchwords of the moment? But just have a clip, because just have a look at this clip even. And I think it just tells us another story, which is the one on legal and illegal migration. We're not going to get any change, but also Labour are never going to address the very real consequences of migration culturally on the country. And by the way, she was harassed during the by-election. I remember it well. I went to Batley in Spain, where she's an MP. She was harassed because she's a lesbian. So need I say any more?
Activists, you know, the things that our colleagues have been through, Shabana Mahmood, Jess Phillips, Rushan Arali, Helen Hayes, you know, I could go on. The personal insults, the attacks, the posters of people's faces, you know, I mean, just horrendous types of intimidation and threatening behaviours. And then also activists, you know, people who are doing this on a voluntary basis because they believe in a person or they believe in a political party, going out on the streets, being shouted at, having things thrown at them. Yeah. You know, is that what our democracy looks like? It's absolutely fine to disagree passionately and robustly. I'd be the first person to say, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's have a chat. Let's have a conversation about it. But if we resort to violence and threats and abuse and intimidation, there is a deeply worrying impact on our democracy, and we have got to push back on that as much as we can. The things that are
very worrying impact on democracy, Alex. But you know, what is a very worrying impact on democracy? Just say it.
Yeah, they can't say it, Darren, because they know it will. They will be booted out of the party more than likely, because they are already have the enemy within in Labour. It's the party is not this change Labour Party that Keir Starmer makes it out to be. Unfortunately, it's just worse and have more of the wool pulled over the British public's eyes until British people feel confident in saying what the truth is out loud. Then this will continue. And unfortunately, people in her own party celebrate political violence. I mean, look what happened when Nigel Farage had that milkshake thrown over him. You had all the lefty pundits sort of cheering about it, saying, oh, it's just a milkshake, it's just a milkshake. Well, it's a milkshake one day and acid another day. That's the problem.
Well, wasn't it a BBC presenter or someone who's still employed who said that wouldn't it have been better if it was battery acid, and they're still employed, I believe.
It was Joe
which
Brand,
Nigel actually... Nigel called the BBC out for live on an interview the other day, which was absolute gold. But just going back to this, I mean, we saw that video of Jess Phillips on LBC. Darren, I think you posted a bit about this, where they were talking about, you know, that horrible shouting and intimidation that she got when the result was announced at her count. And she goes on LBC and she says, it's got nothing to do with the fact that they were Muslim, it's just because they were men. Oh, the patriarchy. Nothing to do with the fact that there are going to be plenty of people, not all of them, but a certain considerable number of people in Islam who don't like the idea of women in positions of power.
Yes, right, okay. Now, I think I've neatly packaged this together, and I'm very impressed by myself for doing it. Michelle Dewberry posted this video showing Park Lane, which is one of the most prestigious, expensive parts of London. And this is what it looks like. This was Michelle, I presume, in a black cab, and she's driving past Park Lane. And I had said... what are these people saying? I live in the park, but I mean the actual park, Park Lane. I live in the actual sodding park. And you look at it and it's just tents after tents after tents and people congregating in the middle of it. And that led me on to thinking about Ireland and whether or not what's happening in Ireland is going to very much happen here. So the scenes in Ireland have been pretty dreadful indeed. So the Gardaí, the police force, women have been struck with batons and pepper sprayed on the ground. Also, governments can actually get the migrants, the illegals, into positions, into the housing that they've procured for them. And this Twitter user here is saying that the mainstream media are refusing to actually report on it.
Lads! You fucking horrible scumbag! A woman on her knees! You fucking horrible scumbag! Is that George? Jesus Christ, man, this is...
So, you can see at the start here.
Yes, scumbags!
Apologies if anyone is offended by the language, but you can see that people are moving.
I was offended by the volume level. My eardrums nearly broke.
Well, apologies, but you can you see the people moving behind them. Yes, AD on Twitter's just said that made some jump. I do apologise.
Sorry.
And yeah, you can see the people moving behind them. And then Ireland's minister was asked about this and the public pushback. And she's a justice minister called Helen McEntee, and she said this.
Absolutely not. Plans will continue as set out. It is so important that we can provide accommodation to men, women and children who are fleeing extremely difficult circumstances. We have an obligation to provide international protection. It will be done in consultation with the communities, and I have to stress this point.
It doesn't look like it's been done in a consultation with the sodding electorates, does it? And we have an obligation to help people in dire need. Dire need. They're coming here. They've come over to Ireland from here, from France. Right? These aren't people turning up from war-torn countries. They are people who are living in safe countries, who have travelled through several safe countries, more safe countries than I've probably ever bloody been to. And they're arriving in the Republic of Ireland, a country that said it wanted independence more than anything else for hundreds of years. It achieved that, got rid of the nasty British, and it's ended up giving away every power that it had to the European Union, and now it's saying to illegal migrants, come on, colonise all. And the Irish people are saying, hang on a minute, I'm not supporting this. I do not want these people here. And their politicians are gaslighting them, saying that they have been consulting with the public throughout this, when actually they're pepper spraying them in the face when they're protesting against the police and shoving these people into properties that could be used on the countless numbers of homeless people within the Republic of Ireland, which, by the way, Dublin has a chronic housing shortage. If you think London is bad, Ireland is far worse when it comes to the housing crisis that it has there. So I feel for the Irish people. I really, really do. And it shows no signs of abating. I mean, there are 2 points there, Alex. Do you think London's going to end up like this? And also, do you think that actually you have sympathy with the Irish people?
I'll start with the latter, Darren. I have massive sympathy for the Irish people, and I've been connecting with quite a lot of them online on Twitter, particularly lately, who've been sharing their thoughts. And I'm noticing a bigger Irish presence, and I think it's really important that we share these stories, because it's not just a London British problem. This is a European problem. And when I don't mean EU, I mean Europe as a continent, as a group of states. We are being flooded with migrants. We're being punished by the globalists for whatever reason. They are wanting this to happen. But when it comes to London, Darren, you're absolutely right. We cannot build, no matter what Labour say they're going to build 1.5 million homes. I mean, how many times have I heard politicians tell me they're going to build more houses and fail to deliver a quarter of it? Is unreal. But London's already full. You know, there's 25 people going to view one rented house, even expensive ones, let alone the ones that are cheaper than that, where you're seeing groups of hundreds of people trying to get a viewing in, and then it becomes a bidding war. We are already at, I'll say it again, this country is full. We need to stop. And if there are certain parts of this country that are welcoming and with one voice, one city saying, we welcome migrants here, we want them here, fair enough, have them.
No,
that's
because
up to
they'll
you.
leave.
But
That's
we
the
are full.
problem.
Well, we got to stop that system from happening as well. That's one of the biggest failures of our immigration system, is just allowing people to reside wherever they want, which has caused this massive displacement of other people in the country. It doesn't consider the local people who don't want to live in those conditions anymore. So, but this, look, Darren, the reality is the whole thing is broken. It's not going to change. It's certainly not going to change over the next 4 years, 5 years that Labour are going to be in government. It's going to get worse. And I work near Euston in London, and that area is becoming a shanty town. There is tents building up every single week, and it's spreading like
I was on
wildfire.
a train going through Whitechapel. I'd never been to Whitechapel before. I got back from a wedding into London, and I thought, oh my bloody hell, you don't feel like you're in England.
The signs for the train station are not even have Arabic co-parts to them. You know, that's what tells you what's happening in the local area.
Chloe, the signs here: concerned parents of Kulok, yes, protect our children. That's in Ireland. Border control is everyone's duty. And Simon Harris, who is the Premier of Ireland, claimed that yesterday's protest was hijacked by thugs. But my question to you, Chloe, if you're concerned about women and children and illegal migration and the consequences on women and children from that, and your politicians refuse to countenance actually genuinely doing anything about it, where do people turn? You know, this gets quite dangerous, doesn't it?
I mean, these people are not thugs for going out and protesting. I mean, I'm sure at protests you get the odd person who says something that's a bit out of line. You get that at any protest. But these people going out and saying that they're concerned for their children is completely valid. I've seen videos of migrants in tents outside primary schools in Ireland getting up to no good. And understandably, mums are concerned about their kids walking home from school, kids who they used to be able to allow them to walk home from school by themselves. They thought they're lucky to live in a safe country. Now feel like that's not the case. And it seems like this politician that we've just seen that video of, she thinks that the status quo works fine. Just let them all come in and we'll just prop them up in hotels. Even if you want to help some people who are coming from war-torn countries, even, you know, if you think it's okay that we need to take our fair share, like put a number on it and have safe and legal routes for them to do so. And, you know, speaking of women and children, if this politician cares about women and children, she won't want people coming across on boats. She would want to be setting up safe and legal routes for women and children to get there, because one of the key reasons why those boats are filled with young men is because the mafia, the gangs, they take rape as payment from women and young girls for them to get on boats. So why would you want that to continue? You are not this, get off your moral high horse thinking that you're the kind person for allowing these boats to keep coming across. It's not good what is happening, and it's just completely unsustainable.
And can I just add, sorry, before you carry on, Darren, on the back of this, because I can see reading the comments here as well, and everyone's saying the same thing. We were not consulted, we were not asked, and I'm not just talking about Ireland, I'm talking about Britain as well. It is. In fact, we voted for at least the last 14 years of government to reduce this and to stop it from happening. We have democratically told the government, we do not want this. And the reality is, Labour will turn around and say, well, people voted for us. Well, they didn't. As our first graph in this conversation today showed, people didn't vote for Labour to come in. They just won because the Tory vote collapsed, because they failed to do what they promised to do over 14 years. We're now being run by people that are the most unpopular party in history to come into government, and they're going to use that as a tool to continue this pro-immigration agenda, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And they've got a huge majority to be able to do whatever they want, even though they got barely any votes.
Just really briefly, but really awfully, the Irish Mirror, horrible left-wing rag, published 15 people appearing in court. So from these 15 people, you've got a citizen journalist, you've got a gym instructor, you've got a hairdresser, you've got a construction worker. They were among 15 people who appeared in court charged with offences rising out of a serious public order incident in North Dublin, protesting that is. And I'm not going to show you, but you're going to have to just take my word for it. They actually list their names and addresses. And I think that is absolutely appalling. And I think it's
doxing.
It's doxing. It really is. And I have absolute sympathy for this gym instructor, hairdresser, this construction worker, all people who are seeing their country change before their very eyes and their politicians gaslighting them by saying that they're doing something about it when actually policy direction shows the complete opposite. I think that the Irish Mirror ought to be ashamed of itself and its so-called journalist activists actually struggle to look themselves in the mirror if anything happens to these 15 people who have had their addresses published online. Right, let's move on from that.
We got a super chat, guys. I think that was our first ever super chat.
Oh, no, we've had
very
super chats
spicy
before.
We've
had super chat, yeah, but thank you for whoever's...
We haven't been asking for them, to be honest.
Yes,
but,
absolutely. Alison, thank you very much for the super chat. We do appreciate your support. Please do support Reasoned if you can, and make sure you're subscribed on YouTube if you're not already. Every little really does help. And... Right, what am I up to now? Ireland, I've done Ireland. Right, this was a good one. I was going to talk about Lily Allen, but I can't be asked now. Right, so...
you can.
I know, indeed. She's a stuck-up little snob who got there by daddy's money, who put on a fake accent to sound working class, who then lectures the working class about being too patriotic. Shove whatever your trophies up your arse, you horrible cow. But anyway, moving on. I tried to find this story online, but I couldn't actually. But anyway, it's from the Times, I think, and it says the Olympians are being asked, or Olympics athletes are being asked to, at the Paris Olympics, told to use the podium for social change. Now, British athletes at the Paris Olympics are being trained to use their fame to drive social and cultural change. UK Sport, the government agency responsible for investing in high-performing athletes, are running courses bringing Olympians to become campaigners. Athletes are already campaigning on issues such as LGBT rights, female body image, the environment, and mental health. So I'm sure we can, some more knee taking, some bring back BLM, let's have some Gaza protesting, all supported by the British taxpayer. Why not? Goody, goody, goody. Let's ruin absolutely bloody everything that everyone enjoys. Let's get rid of every semblance of patriotism in this country. Let's instead just spoon feed people with the obnoxious politics of the liberal classes in this country. You stuck-up morons. Ugh. I won't be watching any of it if they're going to stand there on the bloody podium and give us a lecture on sodden climate change. I bet they got there not on the Eurostar, but by some bloody jet. Yet we'll all get told that you need to install that expensive heat pump and Granny ought to turn down a combi boiler because Greta won't be happy. Piss off. It just annoys me. Chloe, you're into sport.
Yeah, I've got a few things to say on this. So, unless you're in one of the few very popular sports where you get funding from, Nike, Adidas, and whoever, most sports in this country, it's very, very hard to get the money that you need to be able to train full time. So people fight to get enough funding from people like UK Sport, lottery funding, etc. And if we now get to a point where if you don't use the podium as a political platform, you're potentially going to get your funding pulled. Or if you've ever posted a political opinion that doesn't agree with their left-wing agenda online, we're going to pull your funding. And then that devastates your dreams as an athlete. If you can't train full-time and your competitors in other countries have the money to train full-time, you're probably going to lose. That's the reality because it's very competitive. So it's going to be a really sad state of affairs if that is the case. And it's not just these sort of charitable organisations like UK UK sport lottery funding. If you are in a more popular sport and you are funded by Nike, Adidas, etc., they will kick you out if you don't use your platforms to express political opinions, or at least not show anything that they disagree with. So it is a very difficult environment for athletes at the moment.
Oh, we have another super chat. Woohoo! Saying, love your channel. Only recently found you. Keep up the good work. We're getting lots of very nice comments saying that we've got good banter and they're enjoying the show tonight. We have gone on a little bit longer. Stephen says we're all feckin' livid at the state of everything and the politicians. And AD says this is all part of ESG, that's environmental, social and governmental and diversity, equity and inclusion policies, and that it's so they get more funding from the likes of BlackRock, which of course do put prerequisites on funding around ESG and DEI. And Alex, you probably know a little bit more about this than I do, but do you think AD's right on those points?
Yeah, absolutely spot on, and it backs off of what Chloe's saying, because BlackRock funds Adidas and Nike. I think it's probably the biggest shareholder in those companies too. It's in everything actually. BlackRock own a small percentage in almost everything, as do their counterparts, a company called Vanguard, who are just as bad but get less press. And unfortunately, it's comply or die. And I can imagine that some of these athletes would not want to comply, but will feel they have no choice or will never be allowed to compete. And that's the reality, is that, money talks and BS, does the rest. So I think this isn't going to get better. I think this is going to continue to get worse. And particularly as the societal issues get more aggressive in our country and they become more obvious, more money will be thrown at people to try and reverse it socially, to try and use these celebrities to, the George Clooney's going out for the Democrats, for example. Let's be under no doubt, George Clooney's not doing it for fun. He's doing it for money. So you'll see more of it. You just need to make sure you turn a blind eye to it, ignore them, because one thing celebrities hate more than anything else, and one thing that takes the power away from them, is ignoring them.
I just wish that the taxpayer wouldn't be fleeced for this sort of thing, though, because I am assuming that UK sport does receive some form of government taxpayer funding. I hate it when people say government funding. There is no such thing as government funding. There are only taxpayers. But yeah, I assume it does receive some form of funding from the taxpayer teat. And it does. I absolutely... I don't think that should be allowed, right? We need to cut ESG, DAI out of taxpayer funding altogether.
Can I just say, because it's really important for people to know this, one of the difficult things when a country is almost bankrupt is that companies like BlackRock and Vanguard step in, and organizations like the IMF step in, and they put very tough, not just economic policies, but social policies as a way to get you out of it. And so you have to comply. So one of the problems with having a bankrupted country is no matter what happens, even if we put in a reform government here, they would try and crash and destroy our country before that we could even be able to implement a policy. You see sort of similar things with Liz Truss. I know she didn't. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who praise Liz. I have a mixed opinion about Liz Truss, but you see a similar sort of thing. They didn't like where she was going with it, so they took her out pretty quickly.
All right, the final story then. And I'm joking here before anyone says that I'm a fascist and democracy denier and all these other things. But I saw this headline and it really caught my eye. So it says, when 52% voted leave in the EU referendum, Sir Keir Starmer called for a second referendum. He was the architect, let's not forget, of the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn, of their policy to hold a second referendum if they won power. Now, that Brexit vote, there were more than 17. There were double that, well, almost double that, because of the fact that you include obviously the reform vote and the leave vote together. 17.4 million people voted leave. Now, when 52% of people, that's what that 17.4 million vote share represents, voted leave, he said it was too close. He said, rerun the vote. He said, people didn't know what they were voting for. He said, we were lied to. David Lammy, his foreign secretary, said that Tory Brexiteers were comparable to Nazis. I wonder, am I doing this all right, Sir Keir Starmer? Should I be calling, now that you've won a majority with just 34% of the popular vote, shouldn't I be demanding that actually we'll have another general election? That you have lied to the British public already, 2 weeks in, lied through your teeth. You've done more U-turns and backflips than any of those woke Olympians will be doing. So, I say we need to rerun the vote. Alex?
I'm trying to find out what the actual turnout was in numbers in the 2024 election, so we can actually calculate compared to the 17 million how many people voted for him.
Oh, it's
something like 60%.
All I see is percentages. I don't see numbers anywhere, sadly.
I'm pretty sure.
Nice
Yeah. It would be nice. I actually would love to know that, Chloe, if we find it. So maybe we can put it up on our socials for later for the audience. But Darren, it would be. I mean, you nailed it, didn't you? It only matters to the left when it's their argument. It's what we want. It's what the people want. It's what the people want, as Keir Starmer would say. Absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Less people voted for him than they did Jeremy Corbyn. Should they have a rerun as for party leader?
Yeah.
The argument falls flat so quickly, doesn't it? Their arguments always fall flat on their face. And let's not forget, if we had proportional representation, Labour would have come up with half the amount of seats. If we had a real democratic system in our country, Labour wouldn't have even had that number of seats. That's the reality. And that's the problem with our country. Our democracy is broken. That's why our voter turnout is at all-time low, because they see people like Keir Starmer. They go, how the hell are you Prime Minister with this massive majority that nobody voted for? And you know what? I suspect Labour will slowly try to drag us back into the European Union, probably at the applause from most of those wet Tories that are going to take over from the opposition benches. We really are heading to some very disastrous times, but they're hypocrites. They always have been. They always will be.
Yeah, and I think actually, Chloe, the anti-democratic nature of the Sir Keir Starmer and the left, it was ever thus, because of the fact that they can't handle losing, and they lose quite a lot. And as I say, this wasn't a loved up referendum, general election at all. So the BBC say that there were 48 million registered voters, but only 60% of them, which is 28.9 million people, actually turned out to vote. So the entire...
Well, someone in the chat said 9.3 million voted for Labour.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Which is compared to 17 million that voted for Brexit, and Keir Starmer doesn't think that that's enough for Brexit.
14 million people voted for Boris.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I really hope that a journalist will ask him in a live interview this question of, should we have another general election, given how many votes you got?
Oh, good luck, Chloe. Good luck with that. You mean they ask him what he had for dinner and they call it hard-hitting questions? It's ridiculous.
I know.
Oh, God, yeah. The circle jerk, the collective circle jerk of the media is the most sickening thing I've ever seen.
Really is.
No one did that over Boris Johnson. None of the very limited right-wing press did that over Boris Johnson. It's a dereliction of your own duty as a journalist. It's an abdication of your responsibility. So, they can all take a long walk off a short pier. But I would say to Sir Keir Starmer, if I ever get the chance to do an interview, which is very, 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 very unlikely, I would ask him that. And, Stephen says, and I'll just use this as an ending note. Stephen says, 9 million nutters. That's the people that voted for the Labour Party. So there we are.
Yeah, spot on.
But Chloe Dobbs and Alex Armstrong, thank you very much for joining me tonight, as ever. I'm sure Alex is absolutely ravenous and wants to get off and get some food. And Chloe Dobbs is probably off to go kayaking or some madness like that. And yes, whatever else is going on. But our viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for supporting Reasoned. We can't do any of this without you. Our young, relatively, voices need your support to actually fight back against the madness that consumes our nation and much of the Western world. So please do support us in any way that you possibly can, even if it is just a like and a subscribe. That helps massively. Or a super chat, that's very nice indeed. But I bid you adieu, which is very continental, but I have just been talking about the Paris Olympics, so I thought it was relevant. There we are. Good night,
See you later,
folks.
everybody.